Have you ever found yourself just staring at a blank page, knowing exactly what you need to do, but you just can't start? Yeah, most of us call that procrastination, and then we beat ourselves up for being lazy. But what if that paralysis isn't a weakness at all? What if it's actually a sign of something way more complex? Today, we're going to dig into the hidden and kind of surprising connection between procrastination and perfection.
So let's just get right to the heart of it with this question. We are so quick to label our procrastination as some kind of personal failing, right? A lack of willpower. But what if that hesitation actually comes from a mind that sees the final outcome maybe a little too clearly? Let's explore that.
All right, first up, the procrastination myth. We've got to unpack the stories we tell ourselves about this, because it turns out the common explanations might be totally masking the real issue.
Okay, so on the left, you got the usual suspects, right? We blame laziness, poor discipline, bad time management. That's the story we all know. But the hidden cause, the stuff on the right, well, that's a completely different narrative. It's often not about character flaws at all, but about having incredibly high internal standards, a deep fear of an imperfect execution, and just that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by the ideal outcome you have in your head.
And this brings us right to the main event, the perfectionist's paradox. This is that crazy place where your greatest strength, your high standards, your crystal clear vision, becomes the very thing that holds you back.
So, let's be super clear. When we talk about perfectionism here, we're not just talking about wanting things to be neat and tidy. Psychologically, it's this tendency to set almost unrealistically high standards for yourself. And the key part, the part that really matters, is the emotional fallout, that deep, nagging fear that you won't be able to meet.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of the issue. The goal isn't really to be perfect. The driving force, the thing that literally stops us in our tracks, is the fear of feeling imperfect. That fear is such a powerful motivator for avoidance, which, of course, we end up just calling procrastination.
Which leads us to this really fascinating and honestly kind of backward idea, what I like to call the curse of clarity. It's this wild notion that having a crystal clear, high-definition picture of the finished product can actually be the biggest roadblock to even getting started. So here's how it plays out in your head. Step 1. You envision this perfect result, the brilliant essay, the flawless project. Then your mind maps out the ideal way to get there, no mistakes allowed. But then reality hits. That first, actual real-world step, that messy first sentence or that rough sketch, it just feels so clumsy and flawed in comparison to the masterpiece in your head. And the discomfort in that gap feels so huge, it leads to total paralysis. You end up avoiding starting at all, just so you can protect that perfect idea.
So let's talk about that feeling, because, man, it is a heavy one. Being paralyzed by your own ideal isn't just some strategic problem. It has a real, tangible, emotional cost. It's frustrating, and it can be deeply demoralizing.
You've probably heard this before, but Voltaire absolutely nailed it. The perfect is the enemy of the good. That isn't just some old cliché, it's a profound psychological truth. When we're chasing some unattainable perfect, we almost always block ourselves from ever achieving something that's simply good. We sacrifice actual progress at the altar of perfection.
It really does feel like a giant chasm, doesn't it? On one side, you've got this beautiful, elegant castle in your mind, and on the other, there's just a messy pile of bricks. That gap between your brilliant idea and that first clumsy real-world attempt can feel way too big to cross. So instead of trying, you just stay put, where the idea can stay pristine, untouched by a messy reality. But look, understanding all this isn't about finding a new excuse. It's about finding a new perspective. It's about finding a more accurate and, frankly, more compassionate way to understand your own behavior. And that's always the first step toward actually changing it. And this is where the reframe becomes so incredibly powerful. So instead of that old story, I'm lazy and undisciplined, your new story can be, my internal standards are exceptionally high. Instead of, I'm failing at this, try, I fear my execution won't match my vision. And most importantly, what you thought was a weakness, your procrastination, can now be seen as the flip side of a creative strength, your amazing ability to see the ideal.
So you see, understanding the why behind your procrastination is everything. This isn't about lowering your standards, not at all. It's about giving yourself permission to be a beginner again, permission for that first attempt to be messy. So, knowing all this, the real question isn't how to stop procrastinating, it's this: what will you finally dare to start, imperfectly?